Hey guys, welcome to the Coaches Podcast. In today's guest, I got a guy that's played in professional baseball for over 8 seasons. Is that correct? Did I do that right?
You got it.
Okay, 8 seasons. I'm pumped because there's this concept that happens a lot in an athlete's journey, and that athlete's journey is going from athlete to a coach. And I think it's a very special experience that not a lot of people get to experience at the highest level, but I think some people experience this at micro levels. And an example of that really quick before we touch up on this, because this is going to be pretty much the premise of really what this concept I want to try to uncover. Like back when I was in high school, I played ball. And right away, I'm 5'6". You're double the size of me. What are you, like 6'5", 6'6"? Yeah. So there's like you at junior high, you have these dreams where you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna be in varsity. I'm gonna play for 10 years. I'm gonna go to the pros. I'm gonna retire at 35. There's gonna be documentaries about me, right? So that's happening in my high school career, and then in little stages, you start to notice things. You start to notice things that you're like, I'm not growing. And then you got guys like Taylor that are growing really high. And you start to notice that some people are faster, some people are stronger. And actually, to be transparent, on senior year, I got cut. And it was a death to me. And I felt like the whole world ended. And it was just very like hard for me to even, I like to black it out. Because the coach was like, hey, dude, we already got 12 people. I was like, let me just be a practice player. It's like, that's one extra person I got to pour my heart into. That's unfair for some of the guards that I really got to pour into. That was like one major lesson for me, but then it just destroyed me. I don't think I talked to anybody for months. And this is my theory with it. I think it feels like a death, right? So my theory with it is you build out this like whole life. You've experienced it, you've visualized it, you felt it. So you've lived this 20-year life, and then all of a sudden it just dies. And I think this happens a lot to everybody, not just professional athletes. I think it happens to me. I started coaching first, and then now I can't coach as much. I can't train as much, and I got to keep moving and changing identity. And now I'm changing an identity again. I want to go over that because you're experiencing this now. You're going from professional athlete to becoming a coach, right? On the hitting end. I want to uncover that. Let's talk about that really quick because I think that's going to be such a fun topic for me to cover.
Yeah, well, I think you hit up so many good points just in that introduction alone.
Yeah.
So hoops was for you, right? That was the sport. Yeah, you attach an identity to yourself when you've done something for so long. You know, especially when it comes down to you're making decisions every single day that's based on that, you're choosing what you're eating, you're choosing what you're drinking. Decisions of, going out on the weekends might change. Who you're hanging out with will change. And so you're kind of shaping this whole lifestyle and decision making and, like you said, identity based on how you envision yourself. Like you said, you have that vision. And so when it does come to an end, there is a little bit of hole that you have to start filling in to figure out, okay, like who are you without that identity of that athlete? And, that's one thing that I'm definitely dealing with right now. And I'm still kind of going through it. I think I've had a little bit more time to kind of process that just because some of those thoughts started creeping in a little bit last year with some of the stuff I was dealing with. And so I kind of had more time, I think, to mentally prepare myself. But some guys just get it where it's just, like you said, it's a quick cutoff. And it feels like a death for some people. Luckily, I haven't really interpreted it as that, where I feel like a part of me has died. It's more of like a part of me is now morphing into something new. Amazing, I'm like growing into something new because I'm always going to have those experiences. I'm always going to have that athlete somewhere in me. And I'm sure even with you with basketball, there's that hooper in there that's still
5'6" guy talking basketball
that is still what drives you as an entrepreneur doing all the things you do. I'm sure there's things that you tap into
100%.
that you had on the court that still lives with you today. So I don't even know if it feels like a death because it's like an end of something and it's, something that you're changing and walking away from. But I don't know. I think it's more of like an evolution. You're always going to have that athlete and that identity a little bit still there.
Yeah.
But it is a massive shift. It is a big change that you got to start dialing into.
I loved how you went right into reframe. So like that's one of the big frameworks. So if you're facing this identity shift, change the frame into something that's like, hey, you're actually not dying. You're just reforming a little bit, which is powerful. But how did you get to this like eyesight where you actually was like, okay, I'm actually just reforming? Did you do anything for yourself to tap into that?
Yeah, talking with a lot of different people, some mental skills experts that have kind of shed some light on that. Talking with old players that have gone through the same thing where I know a lot of guys that hit them a lot harder because I've been blessed where I've had desires and interests and things that don't connect with baseball. And I always like to give myself a break from the game. Whereas some guys, they just can't do it. Like during the off season, they go home and, they're watching highlights, they're watching videos, they're locked into baseball constantly. They're going and playing in leagues during the off season in winter leagues. And I always wanted to give myself a break. I always knew if I wanted to sustain and keep going farther and farther, I had to give myself time away to miss it a little bit, to just kind of reboot the engine so that when it did come season time, I could lock in and be 100% focused. And so some guys, they don't have that. So when that cutoff comes, it's a lot tougher. So I've reached out to guys like that and talked with them, picked their brains, see where they're at.
Yeah.
And like I said, luckily I didn't have the same situation where I felt like everything was there. Like everything was sitting
was just
on
one
that.
basket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, like I said, it's still tough nonetheless. You still got to kind of find who you are, what is the groundwork of what made you that athlete in the first place. And like I said, you're going to eventually be using that in the future for whatever you do.
Yeah. I feel like you have this deep internal awareness that that I talked to Madison. Madison's your wife. And man, every time I talk to you, I feel like you're like super present all the time. Like we're in these conversations where we just tap in. Like, do you notice that about yourself where you have, or do you train that part of yourself? I feel like baseball, just internally, you have to be so present when you're hitting the ball or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's either, how do you train that?
It's a little bit of both. I think one, it's a personality thing. Like some people have inclination to do that a little bit more than others.
Okay.
But it is for sure a training thing. The more you habitually do something, the more you start to fall in line with that. It's kind of funny that you say that because a lot of the times Madison will say that I'm not very present because I do have a little bit of both. I think a lot of it comes down to like curiosity. Very curious person. I like learning about new things and I like focusing on things that grab my attention because they're new or unique. And so whenever I'm sitting and talking with somebody and they're presenting a perspective or something, I'm bought in, I'm locked in because to me it's new material. It's something I can learn.
Yeah.
I find fascination in that. Whereas there'll be times where my mind will just go to other places and I'll be sitting with Madison or whoever and they look at me and like, I know you're not here with me right now.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not trying to focus and pay attention to them, but it's like my mind is thinking about other things because it's always thinking of new creative curiosity ways of whatever is going through my brain. So there is a little bit of duality in that.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's driven from a place of curiosity. So if I'm sitting with somebody having a conversation, which I love to do, I'm bought in because of that, wanting to understand and connect with something new. And especially when it comes to perspective, I love seeing other perspectives.
Yeah. You're one of the more curious people that I've met. And I think it's almost probably what gave you the platform to kind of where you're at now. Did you ever realize that you were going to be a coach moving forward, or it was just like an opportunity came in and it was like, hey, we need a coach. And I think you're the best suited for this particular role.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Actually, I've always felt like especially when I got to the pro level, I always felt like coaching was going to be the next step. Really, when I was in college was when I really started thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been blessed throughout my career with great coaching.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, if it's just like a cosmic stroke of luck or whatever it is. I've had great coaching from when I was a youth and really just starting with my dad to all the way to the end of my career.
Yes.
Ending with Hall of Fame coach with Dusty Baker in the big league.
No way. Okay.
It's unbelievable who I've had the pleasure of being around. And so in college, I had a great staff, great coaches who at that time it's all about building obviously a baseball player, but a man. Like you get into college and that's where you really start to learn about who you are and how you are going to carry yourself for the rest of your life. And when I saw how they went about it, that's when it was like, oh, I think I want to do this. I like how they're servicing others and like providing this roadmap of how to grow up and become an adult. This is the first time you're out of the house with your parents and you're now in a program where you have these guys that you're looking towards and you're kind of lost to a certain degree and you're kind of finding things out and learning how to live on your own. And they're kind of providing that roadmap and showing, hey, like this is what it takes to be a professional. This is what it takes to be a good person. And that's when I like first was like, okay, I think that's the route I want to start paying attention to. Yeah. And then when I got to the pro level, it's funny because I had told myself I want to get to AA, which in the professional ranks, there's a handful of levels that you get to before you get to the big leagues. Yeah. So there's like rookie ball, low A, high A, AA, AAA, and then the big leagues. Okay. And it's all considered pros, but obviously the big leagues is like the major leagues. That's what we see on TV. These are the teams that, the cities are rooting for. Mm-hmm. And so when I first started, my initial goal was to get to AA. Because I thought in my mind, I was like, man, if I can get to AA, I know that will give me enough experience as a player and enough perspective that people will respect that if I wanted to go into coaching, and that'd be a great level to get to. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't think I was trying to sell myself short or anything, but at that time when you first start, it's tough to get through those levels. Yeah. So I thought AA, a lot of good players make it to AA, and that'd be a great point to shoot for. And it was with the mindset of I could get there because, they'll give me experience for coaching. Yeah. So I've always had it. Yeah. Obviously going through as a player, you want to try to get as far as you can, but it's always been in the back of my mind.
Yeah. I think there's a major lesson that you just pointed out there. And even at the highest level, how people are like, shoot for your dreams. But then when your dreams become so big, I feel like the strategies need to change. So I'm doing a lot of these like longer runs now. And if I'm thinking I'm going to wait till the 20th mile, I'm thinking about the 20th mile, I end up fatiguing out. You've gotten to this like high level where you're the 1% of the 1%. And you're like, I just want to make it to the AA. Because that gap from AA to where you are and then AA to AAA and AAA, it's so long. And there's so many steps beyond it. And then if you're focusing on all of those other steps, you can't even focus on what you got to do in front of you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just like a huge lesson, even at the pros, that I think just simplifying it to a short game is what got you to where you are now. So, because did you have that type of like mindset and hindsight when you were in junior high, it was probably like straight to pros?
Yeah, no, obviously when you're a kid, you're shooting for the stars. And I think you need that as well. Because even, like I said, even though that was how I thought when I first got into pro ball, I'll never forget the conversation I had with my first hitting coach when I had gotten there. And he saw potential and he's like, hey, look, like if you tweak this, and this, you can get to the big leagues. And that was the first time where I really thought, dang, I got a shot at this. Because obviously you always, as a kid growing up, you think, oh, I want to get to the big leagues. That's the dream. So you always, that's always like the aspiration. Right. Then you get to a level of college where you start to see real dudes doing this. And you're like, man, these guys are good. This is tough competition. So then it kind of humbles you a little bit with those, not just dreams and visions, but you start to realize, okay, it's going to take a lot to get there. Yeah. And then you get to pro ball and it's a whole nother level. Like now it's the top guys that you were just playing with in college. Yeah. And
they're smart.
they're athletic, they're talented. And so, and then it's a whole pool because like I said, there's so many levels to get up there. The pool of professional baseball players that don't play in the big leagues is vast. And so you start to realize, man, that's a destination if I want to shoot for it. But just because that coach put that in my ear and he made it a possibility in my mind, then it was like, okay, all right, let's just lock in, figure out what we got to do, develop a routine and a plan for that. And let's go. We see the light in the lighthouse. We're on the boat. So let's shoot for it. And so even though I had, the original goal of let's just make it to AA.
Yeah.
And like you said, that helps because it breaks it up. You still need to have that
another vision afterwards.
Yeah. Even if you feel like it's a little unnecessary or like it's unrealistic. Okay. Have that because everybody always says, if you shoot for the stars, you might land on the moon.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So I had a little bit of both working at the same time.
Yeah. But you do it in a way where I think you have to have that balance for sure. And then some people have it too far out that they just procrastinate. So, but everyone's different. You're like, okay, I'm just going to shoot for the stars. Yeah. And that's like your capacity.
And like you said, there's a balance to it. You don't want to feel like you're throwing yourself off the deep end. I get how like some people might see a vision and be like, get overwhelmed because they don't even know where to start. So then you do have to start. All right, what's the first step? Let's just knock that out. All right, you get there. What's the next step? Yeah. And I think that's really how I had to do it. Yeah. But if you also have something that you're putting in your mind and you're thinking about every day and you're shooting for, that's now like your northern star. That's what's kind of guiding you. Yeah. You might be working on what's right in front of you and you should be focusing on that, but you also have that compass of like, okay, can I look up, see where I'm at? Yep. All right. Put the head back down. Boop, boop, boop. Can I look up, see where I'm at? Yep. Boop, boop. And that's just kind of how you have to go about it.
I love it. I want to uncover some of the coaches that you said because they seem like they've been peppering in beliefs all throughout your college career. Like how important, you're looking at all your coaches, how important is that particular attribute when coaches are just like pouring into you, hey, I think you can make it to the next level?
It's huge. I mean, if anybody who is of relevance to you and significant stature is telling you that, hey, you could do this, you're immediately in your brain going to be like,
maybe can I?
I can do this. Yeah. Whatever crazy thing it is. And so if you have those coaches that are instilling that belief, which is huge, I've started to really pay attention to that concept over the last 2 years. And like, what does that mean? Yeah. What is belief? Yeah. Like, how can that help move you in a way that changes your life? And so if you're a coach and you can instill that in your players,
it's dangerous. Yeah.
It's dangerous. You're giving these guys weapons because your mind is your greatest weapon. And so that's one of the reasons why I think the guys that I had that were my coaches and managers growing up were so great was because they were able to, look, you got to work hard. Yeah. You got to build the foundation. You got to build good habits, but you can do this. Like you can get to a certain level. And I always had somebody doing that and pushing me. And I think that's why I was able to get to where I was at.
Yeah, because I think it's very easy to get delusional, especially if a coach is just like not telling you where your weaknesses are. Like you're gonna make it to the pros and that's it. I think some of the best coaches were like, hey, listen, you have the potential, and here are the reasons why, and here are also the reasons why you are not gonna make it if you don't improve these variables. How pivotal was that balance for you, or were there coaches that were like way on one end where they were just like praising you, and then was there other coaches that were like, you ain't never gonna make it?
And that's another reason what makes a good coach is understanding themselves, who they're working with, I think too.
Oh yeah.
Because
Beautiful.
You can't just have a coach that's always saying one thing, because everybody's different. Everybody that you're going to be coaching is a little bit different. How I needed it was I needed somebody that was hard on me and that was like, look, work hard, keep focused, would put a little fire into me, because I'm a very chill person, so I need that that fire on the other side.
Chill, yeah.
But at the same time, they're instilling that belief, and I think it's big too. They have to believe on themselves when they're telling you. That's one thing that kind of gets lost out. It's one thing for them just to say it to you as a player.
Yeah.
But if they want you to believe,
they have to believe it.
they got to believe it. They can't just say it. They got to. So, and it comes from an awareness for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying when it comes to being able to adjust to who you're working with and be adaptive, because not everybody's going to take information the same way.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to take criticism the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn, all right, who am I working with and how do I need to push them? And that's a conversation that good coaches have all the time. Yeah. And I'm sure you see that all the time with your clients. It's like, okay, I know I can just get into this person and they're going to respond in a way that's, oh, it's a challenge. Let's go. Yeah. That's kind of how I was a little bit, because that's how I grew up with my dad.
Yeah.
Whereas other people, they need like the positive reinforcement motivation, because maybe they're too hard on themselves all the time, or maybe they just don't see the positivity. Yeah. So you're like, come on, let's go. You're trying to be a little bit more positive.
Yeah. 80% positive, 20% kind of nagging.
Sure.
You know, I think for me and my bros, it's always like, you won't do it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I'm going to do it now for sure.
So that's a challenge.
But they know who you are. Mm-hmm. Right. I think that's such an important client or athlete to coach type of relationship. Who are you dealing with? Mm-hmm. And the way you know that is just, I think there's trial and error, but two, you spend enough time. You're like, okay, I know what drives this person, which is huge. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why you're going to be an amazing coach. Just knowing some of those details. The competency is one thing and how to hit a hat, mm-hmm. but the dynamics of it, the psychology of it, and how to influence someone is really important. I always tell my guys, I was like, if you want to be able to influence someone at a high level, you have to be influenced first. And I think you've been influenced by so many amazing coaches that you can just tap into. That worked for me. Mm-hmm. That's insane.
So how do you do that when you meet people? Like, does it take you a period of time? How do you tap into that? You have to work with them for like a week long before you can start to realize who you're working with and how you're dealing with them. Is it quick for you? It takes you a few interactions with that person. Do you have to build a relationship first? How does that?
Yeah.
When you're a coach and you're trying to tap into how do I need to coach this person?
Yeah.
What is that process like?
Oh, for me to figure out the athlete?
Mm-hmm.
Questions. So if I took you on as a client, mm-hmm. you'll rarely hear me tell you what to do the first month, mm-hmm. which is really weird, and you're like, what's a coach supposed to do then? A majority of the time that I'm spent with you is just questions. Mm-hmm. And when you ask questions long enough, what ends up happening is they start to find their own answers. And that's when I grab into it, especially if it's the right answer. I'm like, yeah, dude, I think you should do that. Yeah, that's a great idea. An example is like sweets. They're like, man, I eat so much sweets. And then you're like, yeah, tell me about it. What triggers it? Well, it's because I'm bored. It was like, oh, yeah, cool. What do you do when you're bored? It was like, well, I just eat. I was like, do you do anything else? What else excites you? And then they're like, oh, I do this. And then they're like, maybe I should do that, right? And I was like, let's try it. Do you see? So mm-hmm. It's very interesting, but that's just a microcosm of what happens in seconds. Mm-hmm. But this could be happening for months.
Yep.
And then at some point, I think you can just dictate. At that point, they have this major level of trust. You've gotten them there, because that requires a lot of energy on their end. That requires a lot of patience on your end. At some point, I'm just like, dude, this is there's no time to think. This is what you got to do. Mm-hmm. And then they have this blind trust that that you just bond, and I think that takes time, and I think the best relationships just it's built on those questions, and I think you're going to do that already. You just asked me a question.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's why you could tell you're a great coach, because those coaches, they know that what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
The coaches, they know what is within you, like what you need to do to get to the next level, what you need to do to change something in your swing, or buy into a certain concept.
Yeah.
They just got to find a creative way for you to realize that the answer.
Exactly. This is something that your wife hates me for, is I ask a lot of questions and she just wants me to just tell her what to do. Right. And I think she can be a very powerful soldier from that position. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'm not leveraging it the right way, but for me, it's like, how do I position myself that they would never need me again? Mm-hmm. Right. I call it Like if I died tomorrow, are they going to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I look at a lot of the ways that I coach. And that is more impactful because at the end of the day, you won't be there forever. And I think the great coaches know they're not going to be there forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of your high school coaches, like, I know I'm not going to be there forever, but what kind of value can I give them today that's going to potentially set them up to play at the next level?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, that's growth,
yeah.
That's preparing and instilling a mindset of growth. Like if you just were to tell somebody to do something all the time, it might benefit the situation
For
immediately for
yeah.
both you guys, just because now it's more production. But like you said, if you were to leave and that stops, what are you left with? So if you start to let them build the habit of, okay, how do I need to think through this? What questions do I need to start asking myself to figure this problem out?
Yeah.
Now you're building the growth mindset. And like with these coaches that I've had, you're at a certain level, and your goal as a coach should always be to push your player to the next level,
100%.
next opportunity.
Yeah.
And so you have to instill that framework of thinking so that now they're autonomous. Now they can start to be their own coach.
Exactly, dude. And I don't do that to everybody. And it's the same thing as like you're going to have players that are just like, you call players like locker room players that are leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not everybody's a locker room player. So I look at, like, are they just a player that's going to be a supporting group, or are they going to be a player that could potentially lead 10 to 20 to 30, maybe hundreds of people?
Mm-hmm.
And if I lean into a person that I feel like can really lead more coaches, I hammer more questions than to-dos. And that's just like, now that I'm playing it back, that's why I probably do that to your wife. Because she can be an amazing leader if she really honed into it. And then there's other coaches just tell them what to do. Just do X, Y, and Z. And not because I don't think they can be amazing leaders. It's just they're not wired that way. And they're just like, I just give me a task list, and you need those people too. You can't just have 50,000 leaders.
Right.
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. And that's when I think back of like, how did I catch momentum when it came to building myself as a professional? Because I really had to grow a lot.
Yeah.
Taylor at the beginning of my professional career versus Taylor at the end of his career, very different players.
Yeah.
I was very limited. I was a guy who hit the ball hard but never hit home runs, had a swing that produced a lot of low line drives, ground balls, had to restructure that. I was only a first baseman who previously in college was a pitcher. So I had to make those changes.
That's a big change.
And then through my professional career, I had restructured the swing, so now I'm becoming more of a pro hitter where I'm hitting home runs and doing more damage. Was able to do that. And then I had to move around in positions because the value of just being a first baseman isn't very high. And so now I start playing third base and I start playing the outfield. I'm having to learn these things. And a lot of it came from the beginning of, hey, I need you to tell me what to do so I can understand the pattern of now taking it on myself. And so it was a lot of that at the beginning. It's like, show me what I need to do.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. Do this. And then it's like, okay. And then I would take the pattern and I would just run with it. And then by the end, I knew how to start from a very limited set of skills to now I got an arsenal. And that's really what got me to the big leagues. Like,
wow.
I, wasn't a huge draft pick, high valued prospect or anything like that, but I worked myself into that position because I figured out the pattern that needed to be done to gain the skills that needed to put me there. And I just, then it was just like, I had to coach myself. And that's why a lot of these coaches, they look back and they gave me the call was because, hey, we knew you were coaching yourself the whole time. And that was honestly one of the things I think in the end, I look back and wonder if it hindered me a little bit because I always in my mind saw myself as a coach, coaching myself to become the player rather than just feeling like I'm the player. Amazing. And I think when I got to a certain level, I had a tough time getting out of that mindset of I'm just a guy who's coaching himself to be successful rather than I'm the player that is successful. And I had a hard time with that. And I think a lot of the failure I had when I got to the higher levels was seeing how these guys would operate. And these guys have been dudes, their career. And some of it came real natural and easy to them. They didn't,
Mm-hmm.
not that they didn't work hard, because at that level, everybody's working hard, but
They just have natural
things
skills.
where I always felt like I really had to like focus and like
Mm-hmm.
had to repeat the routines and felt like I was coaching myself all the time. Where these guys just went out and played, didn't have to think, they just went out and did it. And I think it hindered me a little bit towards the end.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of push and pull. You have to know when you get yourself to a certain level where it's like, okay, now I have to shift my identity of, I am that dude, I am the player, I did the hard work and coached myself, but now I got to make sure that I'm in the right mindset where I can keep it going.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think you tapped into something major there.
Mm-hmm.
Where the best coach has always been coaching themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And they needed to, based on necessity. It's like that whole term, the best athlete are often sometimes not the best coaches. It's the one that had to like, they're kind of in the medium, right? They're like, dude, I'm not as fast as everybody. Something that I noticed, there was no way I was the same height as all these kids. They were much faster than me. I was 130 pounds. So like I had to figure out different angles. I had to figure out different moves. I had to figure out how, like, could I shorten that range by being in a different position? So it forces you to see the game in an entirely different level. Because if you were fast, or if I just had the hops, I'd just be dunking all day.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have those gifts. My gift was I didn't have gifts. And because of that, I was forced to see the game differently. I had to coach myself differently. And you're doing that now. I think that's like, I guess that's another hard, like from junior high, you probably were the strongest, right?
Yeah.
Fastest thrower,
Tall,
tallest.
athletic, yeah.
And then you go into high school, which is like, yeah, I'm still in the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into double A, you're like, these guys are all big.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are all fast.
Yep.
And then you get higher and higher and higher and higher.
Mm-hmm.
Like what were some of those realizations? One, that you're like, these guys are just huge. How am I going to compete with these guys? Mm-hmm. When did that start happening? When you started asking that question to yourself?
Yeah, well, when you get to college, it's immediate. Where in high school, like you said, you have the attributes that just kind of put you at an advantage, right? Yeah. You get to college and you realize, okay, these guys all had that advantage in high school. Yeah. You know, a lot of these guys are strong. A lot of these guys are fast. They have certain skill sets that's why they got recruited to come play here. Yeah. And so then you start having to make that shift then. That's when I started to make the shift of, okay, like how is this going to shape out for me if I don't start picking up on these new skills and learn how to transition myself to just being, you know, talented and athletically gifted to now becoming a ball player. So college was when I really started to hone in on the game itself. Like you said, you start to look at the game a little different because you have to start now giving yourself advantage and put things in your tool belt. Yeah. So that's when I started kind of paying attention to certain patterns and like how guys were pitching you. And I had the luxury of being a dual sport or a dual threat where I was pitching and I was playing a position when I was in college.
So you got two angles, yeah.
And I had always been a pitcher growing up. Like that had always been, talk about identity. That's who I thought I was when I got into college. And so my mindset has always been attacking the hitter. Yeah. So now when I started to make that transition to paying more attention to hitting and being more of a hitter, I already have that instilled of how would this pitcher try to attack me? Yeah. Like what combinations he's going to come with. Now I'm anticipating. So now I'm at the plate and feeling like I got a little bit of an advantage because I can anticipate maybe where he's going to try to go next. Mm-hmm. Then you shift that to the pro level. And like you said, it's every level you go up, the things that made you special at that one level, everybody else is now doing. So now it's almost like, all right, what's the next thing I got to figure out or learn that's going to keep rising me to the top and pushing me up? Yeah. And so it's that constant, where can I get an advantage? Where can I? And it's insane. Yeah. Excuse me, where those guys get to at the big league level, because it's all of it, right? It's freak athletes who understand the game, who go beyond the game, where their mindsets are just crazy. They're
resilient. Yeah.
So much resilience and so much just how they think. Mm-hmm. And then the preparation is unbelievable. So you just put that out there all together. I mean, it's incredible. I don't think you watch like these documentaries with like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant.
Yes.
Oh, these guys are dogs. They're in the gym working hard. They're studying film and doing all this. You don't realize what that means until you get around these guys, and it's like,
and you see it.
No, they literally breathe this stuff. Yeah. And it's, I loved seeing it. Some of these guys, how they went about it, it was very inspiring. It's a little intimidating for sure, but it's like, no, these guys are bought in.
Yeah. I want to talk about that because I don't think they like, there's not documentaries on coaches that many times. They don't make huge movies about Phil Jackson and Cheese. Like maybe they will. They'll make documentaries, but never like sweet movies. They'll always make movies about Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, all those guys, right? Like how much camera time did you watch in your career? Like how many times have you been watching just videos after videos of your competitors, of yourselves? Like if you were to like accumulate how many hours of what I call the boring work, because it's not fun. How many hours do you think you've done that?
I don't even know if I could tally up the hours. I mean, it gets to a point where it's every day. Yeah. It becomes part of your routine. And now it's getting more and more because technology is becoming more prevalent in the sport and really in all sports. Yeah. And analytics are becoming such a big thing. So now you have all the tools you need. Back, I feel like 10 years ago, you had very basic and minimal tools. So you had the film, you could watch certain things. Now it's broken down so much. You have literally all the information you could ever have when you're facing an opponent. And so it becomes just part of the routine. And that's one thing that the Astros always did well because they were kind of the leaders and all of that. Yeah. Of preparing their players where it's like, look, this is the scouting report. This is who's going to be on the mound. These are the guys that are potentially coming out of the pen. This is their arsenal. This is what they've been throwing in the last, 3, 4, 5 weeks. These are how they're getting guys out. This is where they're making mistakes. So now you're just kind of like taking all that information and trying to sift through it of, okay, what am I going to need for today's game? And that's every day. So it's tough because you have to understand the balance of filtering what's too much information and what's going to start causing that paralysis of analysis.
They could throw some audibles there too if they wanted, right?
Yeah, and some guys, will change. Obviously, athletes are creatures of habit, and whatever's working for them, they're going to probably keep doing. Yeah. So you can start to play with that a little bit. But there are guys who will be like, I know what I've been doing the last few days. I'm going to purposely flip the switch. And those are the guys that I'm saying when it comes to the mental game, they're at a whole nother level. But yeah, it does. It comes down to having to do the things that are going to prepare you and do a little bit extra that is going to give you that advantage.
Which is crazy. And it starts to make sense. I think we had a conversation. The longer the sport gets, the less exciting it gets because everyone gets so good. Right. And it's like every single person is researching each other. It's like, how can we throw a ball that this guy's not going to, 80% of the time, it's not going to be a home run. Yeah. And it's like everyone's doing that. You see this in baseball. You see this in MMA. You see this. It's like, how's that transition for you going and seeing that? Because it was exciting. It was exciting when no one had the slow motion cameras and the angles and the statistics. It was fun to see all of those things. And now it's transitioning into a sport of ones and twos, right? Or ones and zeros.
It might have felt like more competitive because it feels like it's more you versus me. That's all we got. Yeah. Our instincts against each other. And I think a lot of older players who have retired and the game was like that for them feel that way. They get very frustrated when it comes to all the analytics and how that stuff is now being passed along to these players because it's getting to the point where it's like, the computers are telling you what your move needs to be rather than just having
human instinct,
creativity,
which is
exactly. And that's a big debate that we're hearing a lot within the game because baseball, it's one thing with like basketball and football, and I could be totally wrong because that's not my field. But there's a lot of if one move is made, a lot of creativity, a lot of random obstacles. With baseball,
it's one ball.
It's one ball. there's an execution of a pitch that
Yeah.
if you make this pitch, more than likely, it's a lot of probability, more than likely you're going to get a certain result.
Right.
And so you can start to compile that together where it is a bunch of information versus a bunch of information, and whoever can execute on that information the best has the best probability. And that's weird. It kind of loses a little bit of that authenticity feel of just me versus you.
Yeah.
And so, but unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, that's where the game is going. So as a coach, I'm going to have to know how to prepare my players and be like, look, at the end of the day, it is you versus him.
Yeah.
But we're going to prepare as much as we can on the backside of this analytic stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's cool to see. So I think if we went from like animalistic to logistic, right? I think there was this era. I talked to another baseball player. His name was David. And he said, these guys that were coaching never touched a baseball in their whole life. You know, there was that era where they're just masters in statistics. And one of his biggest frustrations was like, dude, you don't even know what you're talking about. You're just giving me these numbers and they don't listen to them. Right? I think that's like the big gap. So one, you're very analytical, and two, you've been in the shoes of these people. Do you think they're like shifting now from, they're like, we got to make sure at least the coach knows what it smells like, what it feels like, what the highs are, what the lows are, so they can communicate a little bit more prolifically, because at the end of the day, they can know all their stats. They can know all their competency. But if they don't know how it feels to be in their shoes, it's very hard to listen to someone like that.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I'm going to bring to the table that the Astros were really high on. It's the fact that because they were an organization that led the charge, so to speak, with the analytics and how we think of the game in terms of numbers and producing results. And like you said, there are a lot of instructors and coaches now that were never in that position of playing themselves. They just understand the numbers. They understand what's going on with the statistics, and they know how that's going to be produced on the field. But yet they might not have that connection of, look, I know what that feels like to try to make that move or try to change that swing or try to make that move on defense. I think I can bring that perspective of, I grew up through the Astros organization having that taught to me, the analytics side.
Yes.
And I lived it. So now I can embody both the player and these coaches and coordinators that were trying to pass along this information. Whereas when I was going through it, it was tough because it was a lot of information. Like I said, the whole paralysis by analysis, you get fed a lot of information, and a lot of that's not given to you in terms that you can understand as an athlete or can compute in a way that's now physical.
Right.
And I saw guys who got caught up with it a lot, and it kind of tanked their career. Yeah. And that was one of the patterns that I learned really early in my career was, okay, what can I filter and know that it's going to be beneficial to me? And what do I just need to like push off to the side and not let it bog me down? Because at first, like, I'm a very open when it comes to somebody teaching me something. I want all the information just because, you know, I look up to you as a coach. I think what you have to say is probably going to be beneficial. So I'm trying to take it all in.
Yeah.
And at first I tried taking it all in, and you drowned in the information. And so then I started to understand, look, the guys that can filter what's needed and what's unnecessary are the guys that are producing the most. And so just taking that mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the Astros reached out to me and, you know, were adamant about me coming back and coaching, was because I've been through it and I had success doing it as a player, whereas a lot of guys had trouble.
Yeah.
I was like a prime example of taking somebody who had potential but needed a lot of work and skills to develop.
Yeah.
Listened to all the things that they were telling me, figured it out, and then got to a point where
you got the results. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the results and what they were looking to achieve from all that stuff.
Exactly.
So I think that will tremendously help when it comes to coaching.
Big time. And here's a correlation. I had coaches in the past, and I still do have coaches right now. They're like, I want to get this new cert. You know, I want to get this new cert. I was like, for what? It's like, why do you want that cert for? You know, they have like 17 certs, and they don't have a concrete answer to it. And I was like, you don't need more certs. You need a better level of communication. You can have all this knowledge, but if you can't distribute it or filter it so a person can actually take action, everything you're learning is meaningless. And that's like, that's one of my biggest like heartbreaks. I see people get all these certifications left and right, and their client never changes. And in fact, what happens is the client pulls away because this person's so smart now, and he can't distill it to a language that's to a bro, a language to just a normal human being. And I'm like, dude, when you have enough competence, just connect it. Can you make sure you filter it in a way that someone can actually understand it? And that's just what I see in my world, but I can't imagine. I can't imagine what's happening on the professional world because the numbers got so big, right?
Yeah.
So,
and that's it. Information is all out there, right? There's a ton of information that we can learn from, especially now with the internet and the explosion of just everybody, having conversations like we're having, podcasts where you can listen and get in-depth knowledge on something.
yeah.
But it's one thing to just collect that information. It's another to use it and use it correctly.
Yeah.
Because I see it all the time where people, they have all these books or all these, like you said, certifications or all this knowledge, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't use it correctly. And if you can't now share or pass it the way that it's meant to be shared or passed.
So it's effective.
So yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, okay, then why are you doing all this stuff if you can't do the next step?
I love it. Okay, so I want to talk about the psychology things real quick. Because I think at the highest level, it becomes all psychology. Everyone's fast. Everyone's strong. What's the percentage? So let's just say there's three big parts. There's physical, there's psychological, and then there's the skill set side of things. How do you distribute that at the highest level? What do you think? Like, what's the breakdown for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would even just lump the skill set into the physical, and you can just look at the physical and the mental.
Yeah.
And baseball is a game where the mental needs to be probably at an 80% or higher, to be totally honest, because it's not even just going out and competing and doing it. It's the day in and day out of just constant failure. So baseball is known as the game of failure because
I love it.
If you're hitting 300 and it's out of 1,000 points, if you're hitting 300, 30%.
Yeah.
If you hit 300 for your career, you're a Hall of Famer at 30% success rate.
Yeah.
That means 70% of the time you're failing and you're going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So then what does it look like for the guys that are struggling or trying to learn something new? And you're going 0 for 20 for your stretch of your last, 5 games?
Yeah.
You get to a dark place. You get constant failure after failure after failure. And the crazy thing is, too, you could be doing everything right. You could have the great swing. You could have the right approach when you're at the plate. Hit the ball the way you want, and it gets caught by somebody.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And you see how that can unravel guys. And I went through a stretch early in my career, and I'm very grateful for it because I think it helped structure kind of the next few years for me. But where struggled mightily at the plate. It was the first year where I was going through some big transitions with my swing. So I was doing a lot of different stuff at the plate with mechanics. And man, I went through a stretch where times got dark. And when you're in a headspace like that, everything just seems out of whack. Everything just seems wrong. You feel like you're walking around with a big dark cloud raining on you wherever you go. Yeah. Whatever you do, you feel like, well, I'm not.
I can relate for sure, dude.
And so, and it's every day at the professional level. So there's no breaks where, all right, I need a breather, I need to get away. It's like, no, the next day, right back to the routine, and you just got to push through it. And so a lot of that is that resilience. A lot of that is, how can I start being optimistic with things to help get me out of that funk, to get me out of that slump. And things, it seems so like trivial sometimes when it comes down to certain things where, I hit a ball down the line and most of the time it's just landing perfectly on that line. And now it's just just foul. So now
Yeah.
I'm back in the box. And it's little things like that. I
Yeah.
smash a ball right to a guy and he catches it. And you just now have to start playing optimistically with your mind of like, look, I need to be grateful of like little wins. And we call them quality at bats. It's something that you'll hear in baseball. You might not get the result of getting that hit. You might not get the result of, putting points on the board, but you had things going correctly
in the process.
And maybe the final outcome wasn't the way you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Take that as a quality at bat. So that you can start stacking wins even though you're not seeing it on the stat sheet.
That's so good.
So that you're not falling into deeper and deeper depths.
Yeah. Dude, I did that with one of my athletes. Not like that professional, but I had a client that was like, dude, I think I'm back at square one. I didn't work out for a whole week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he said. Is like, I didn't work out for one whole week. I think I'm back at square one. So, and then I asked him, I was like, when was the last time you did this? And you failed. And then how long did it take you to come back? He's like, oh, like a year. They start something on January and then they quit and they come back and do it on January. It was like, well, listen, you did it. Your rebound rate was a week long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like kind of a metaphor of stacking the wins. You're like, yeah, you know what? I did.
Mm-hmm.
The difference of someone that's really fit and then someone that's not is how fast that rebound rate is. That's just like my correlation. So for me, if I mess up on something, I eat a cheat meal, I'm back the next minute.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, cool, I'm back to normal. I'm going to go work out, right? Or something like that, right? And I think that's the same principles in terms of when you're not seeing the stats. That's how you can play the game. Keep playing the game, because over time, if you stretch it out, you're going to start seeing some numbers on there.
Yeah. How do you, when it comes to people that you work with like that, how do you get them in that mindset where, because obviously like what I explained with the quality at bats, I have something like I can see, had a great approach, did everything right, maybe not, didn't get the right result. In your world, how do you see something like that where it's like, hey, look, this is your quality at bat. This is what you need to pay attention to or look at to know that, look, you're doing the things right. You might not get the right result.
Yeah.
You're doing the things right. Just keep it going.
What process?
Yeah. What is that in your world?
Man, it could be deep, right? So like, one, you have to live it. The moment you fail, I think that's the greatest opportunity for them to see how you approach it. So anytime I'm injured, I'm back in the gym with a smile. And then that's 1 point. They're like, oh, I kind of believe him when he says it now. Right? And then I got 2 injuries. Or maybe I have my own son. That was a big one for me. I was like, I'm not going to let anyone tell me I'm going to get out of shape because I'm a dad. I was like, no, I refuse to do that. I'm going to be in the best shape when I have my son. Like the whole dad bod thing.
Dad bod, I was going to say.
Because there's so many people that says it. So now if I live that, I have more evidence that I can handle that level of adversity. So that's 1 point. Just living that version that I want them to be is so pivotal. The other one is defining failure multiple times. I think you have to have a definition of it. And you not only have to say it in your head, you need to like say it over and over and over and over again to your client. So I'll say that all the time. I'll go into a session with a guy that's trying to gain 20, 30 pounds. And I'll tell him, the intention today is to fail. And they're like, what? I need the last 2 reps to fail. If you're not failing those last 2 reps, I have to add a little bit more weight. And then I tell them, the reason for this is where you're going to grow the most. If you're doing everything in perfect form and nothing's happening, you're not going to get the strength that you're looking for. So convincing them that failure is actually where everything is. And that's like my definition of it. If I were to ask you what a definition of failure for you was, like what are some of the words that come up in your head? Like what are the top 3, top 5 words when someone's like, failure, give me 5 words for it.
Yeah. Striking out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, as a hitter, that's the number one. Making errors.
Yeah.
When you're playing defense and you boot a ball or something, that I'm telling you, nothing crushes you more. And then just not being prepared.
Yeah.
Especially for me, because I felt like I had to have a routine that I was constantly leaning on.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't seeing success on the field and I look back and I was like, dog, I haven't been doing the drills that I needed to do, or I hadn't been looking at the video correctly for the opposing pitcher or something like that, then I feel like, dang, I failed myself right there.
Right.
So, I mean, those are the three
big things that come up to your head.
Yeah.
Do you have a framework around it? So when you fail, like you're like, okay, I failed.
Mm-hmm.
What are my, like, what do you do beyond that point?
Yeah. It starts with the routine. Like I said, any time that I feel like I'm lacking or I'm not doing something as successful as I'm supposed to be doing, try to take a step back and look at, all right, what's going on? Do I have a routine for myself is the first thing I ask myself, because if I'm not doing things habitually that are putting me in position for success for whatever I'm looking at, then I'm probably already screwed from the jump. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm already losing before I even give myself a chance. And so putting together
track first. You got to have a method to track. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And then it just comes down to the routine. Like, am I doing the things that are putting me in a good state, in a good position, you know, to do, I mean, really whatever it is. Am I doing the drills, for example, if I'm breaking down something with my swing?
Yes.
Am I doing the drills that, one, are actually putting me in the right positions, right moves? Because I can be out here doing all the drills and have what I think is a routine, and it's not beneficial to anything that I'm doing. It's kind of like the whole information thing. I could have all the information, but if I'm not applying it correctly, then it's like, that's a waste of information. So sit down, have the routine, make sure that what the routine is applicable to how I'm trying to change that swing. Now it's just repetition.
Okay.
Now it's
do it a few more times.
Doing it over and over again. Now it's having a positive mindset with it, because I could sit there and do the things, but if in my mind everything's negative while I'm doing it, my body's probably going to react in a way where it's not going to memorize, or it's not going to get that muscle memory or really latch on to the information I'm trying to send to it. So then I always got to try to keep a positive mind with it. And, you know, these things are hard. You kind of got to go through the checklist of, all right,
what am I missing here?
What am I missing? Am I doing it correctly? Do I have the positive mindset?
So the emotional side, the tracking side. Okay.
Yeah. And then I think just at the end of the day, it just comes down to like belief. Like, am I buying into this process? You know, am I giving myself the right shot by knowing that, look, I'm putting in the work.
Yeah.
I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing as the foundation. I'm bringing a positive mindset. Now I just got to kind of trust the process and just have faith that, look,
it's gonna work.
Whatever I'm doing and setting it up, it's going to give me the outcome that I'm shooting for.
Dude, that was money. I think the difference of someone that's getting to the pro level and then someone that doesn't is a person that stays on track. A lot of times I'll see people, they'll try something for a week and they'll just like, let's start all over. Let's do something different.
Right.
Keto doesn't work. Let's try carnivore. You know, and then they keep moving from one thing to another. But you have this like, okay, all the checklists are done just based on all what the coaches told me to do. Is my emotions in check? Do I believe in this? And if all those three things, let me experiment a little longer before we make massive adjustments.
Have the faith. Yeah.
Have the faith. And I think that's like one of the biggest things that makes people different. That makes people that are winners and then that are losers. It's their framework around failure. Like, what is your stance around failure? And yours is like, if we're doing everything right, let's keep going until we see something that breaks.
And I've had times too where that's not the case. Like, I learned, oh man, I didn't have the right routine this was after, you know, I thought everything was going right. I gave myself grace of like, let's have faith. Let's do this. Still no answer.
Yeah.
Then you start to revert where it's like the negative thoughts start coming back in. You know, am I doing this right? Am I supposed to be doing this? And I've had that cycle so many times throughout my career. And so, you know, you just start learning from it. And then you start seeing the pattern of, look, I've been here before. I think that I'm running to a wall and I feel like this is it. You gotta go back. All right, let's go back to, you said tracking.
Yeah.
Let's go back and check to see what screws are loose, what things not bolted in correctly. Is everything right there? Okay, good. Am I keeping that positive mind? Well, now because I was failing, I got to get it back. So then I start working on that. It's a game of trial and error.
Yeah.
So often, and man, keeping an optimistic mindset is going to do a whole lot, because even if you do fail, and even if you do feel like I'm stuck, I can't get through, if you can at least have the positive optimism of like, all right, that's okay, let's just try it again,
just keep going.
It's going to give you that limitless opportunity, and eventually you're going to run into what works for you.
Where do you find that balance? Like there's one end where a person just changes technique every other week. Yes. Right? There's that person. Yeah. And then there's a person who's like, no, let's just stay on pace until it works. Like, how do you know when you're like, okay, it's not working, I need to start like seeking for help from my coaches?
Exactly.
When do you know? Is it like 3 months? Is it 90 days? Is it a year? Like, how do you gauge that?
I mean, it's dependent on, I think it, like you said, it comes down to the coach at that point. That's when a good coach steps in and is like, hey, look, you're in it right now. That's what makes a good coach too, is as a player, you're in it. You're facing the problem. Your face is right up against it.
You can't see anything.
A good coach is going to be right there with you, but they're going to be looking at it from a different angle.
100%. Yes.
And so they're locked in with you. They've been feeling the struggle with you. All my great coaches, when a guy's going through a slump, they're slumping too.
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out solutions for it as well. And that's when the good coach steps in and is like, hey, I think maybe look at it this way. Or I think you could maybe look at it this way. What do you think about trying it this way? And then that's where you start to conjure up the solution that you knew you had from the beginning, like we talked about earlier. And you'll make adjustments or slight changes. And before you know it, you'll find something that maybe it's taking you down another path of trying to figure something out, but at least it's moving you. If you're just sitting in the stuck, you're in trouble. You know what I'm saying? At least you're moving.
Yeah.
And so that frame, and it depends on what you're working at and what you're trying to accomplish. That could be a day. Yeah. It could be a couple of days. It could be a couple of weeks. I've been in slumps before where I had a tough start to 3 months,
it's a long time.
And
it's a long time to hold on faith.
It's hard. I'm telling you.
That's real faith.
You get to a point, trust me, ask Madison. I've been in some places where it's like, am I even doing anything right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you find the people that you need to help you, and you eventually help yourself, and just keep moving, and you find a way out of it. And before you know it, now all of a sudden you went from a terrible 3 months to something clicks.
Yeah.
And you catch fire, and now you're the greatest hitter alive again. And that's baseball.
That's it.
That's why it's so frustrating.
Dude, we had this, you'll love this metaphor. You played ball before, so we're not like on the same, we're not like on different planets, but we played this team. They were all about your size. And they did something called the full court press. And for like dude, it was like 30-0.
Just wearing you out.
Just wearing us out. We couldn't even pass anything. And eventually my coach pulled me out and was like, dude. And I was like, man, he's pulling me out. I'm not going to come back in. And then he pulled me to the sideline. He was like, if all of their 5 people are on the first half of the court, what's happening on the second half? And then I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, I can just throw it over there. And it broke their press, and then we were able to break it. Right. And it's just the same, like, it's like when you're in the trouble of things, you see 5 dudes that are 6'5", 6'7", you're like, I can never throw this. But if you just step back, just like a coach is like, he's been open the whole time. How can you throw it there? And it was just that simple thing. And I think you're 100%. A good coach can holistically look at the whole scenario and pull themselves out of that situation, and also understand that the person's frustrated, and then be like, just look with me. Where do you see it's open? And it's obvious. It's so obvious. Yeah. Right. And then distilling that, sometimes you have to pull the person out and just bench them for a little bit. It's like, do you see that? I'll put you back in when you see that. And then they never did a full court press on us the rest of the game, right? Yep. And it's just, I think it's it's a huge lesson I want my audience to understand is just to pull yourself back from that pain point, get neutral, and just observe.
Yep. And pulling yourself out of that stuck too, when you're in that situation, literally where I'm going to go do something that I haven't done in a while to gain new perspective. One thing that it's always a running joke with baseball players is when you're in a slump, you need to get your boys and you got to go out, have some fun. You need to change up the
environment, the energy.
You can't have that rain cloud over you constantly. So let's go out, let's go do something, let's go have some fun.
Right.
And for whatever reason, it always seems to work because you're taking yourself out of the routine of a situation where it's constant failures in your mind, constant negativities in your mind.
Yeah.
You go release some steam, go be silly, go act a fool with your boys.
Yeah.
You come back the next day and all of a sudden you're back to normal.
You're a different person.
And it's just that mindset of getting you out of that position, that stuck. Yeah.
I think it's huge. I think those are like some super low hanging fruits a lot of people don't understand. It's just like just changing the environment and then changing your energy state. People get anxious, people get depressed, and they just hammer into just solving the problem for years. I've been guilty. And then sometimes it's just like, babe, let's go for a walk. Let's go for a date. You're like, no, I got to hammer this problem. Okay. I have this huge problem. I can't stop until I figure it out. And it's just that simple of just changing the environment and changing your physical state. Because when you're your boys, you're relaxed, right? Yeah. And like when you're stressed out, you're like rounded forward, you're just typing away, your heart rate's just beating. I think there's something that no one really understands. And sometimes I think you're gonna have to use that at some point.
Oh yeah.
One of your athletes he's just hitting the pavement. He's grinding away. Stop what you're doing. Go home and see your family.
Yep.
And we come back. And then we'll reset, and then you see it flourish. That's where it's really exciting for me when I get to see that now. And I'm excited for you to see that because you'll tap into some of these simple things. You're like, oh my gosh, it worked.
Yeah. Yep. And the good coaches that have experience, they see that, they know it. Especially the ones that have been in that position before. And, you know, I've had managers, and we call them managers because that's their position. I think I watched the last episode with you and Nick, and the difference would be a coach and a manager, and I love that.
Yeah.
So when I say manager, that's the level of coaching stature. But he was, you know, seeing us struggle as a team, and we're kind of going through a slump as a group, not playing very well, not playing anywhere close to our potential. We pulled into a city that had great nightlife. Yeah. He took the bus from the game after a loss. We went right to the nightlife area. He's like, look, you got into such and such time. Yeah. The bus will be here. Everybody needs to be back on the bus. Yeah. Everybody went out, had a good time, got back on the bus. Sure enough, that streak of winning just started to fall into place. And it's one of those things where it's like, as a coach, you know, you're not supposed to do that. You're not, you got to be professional. You need to be locked in. But the good coaches are willing to take those risks and chances, knowing that it could be beneficial for their team. Like you listen to some stories when it comes to like the Bulls and how Phil would have, you know, certain weird things going on when they would show up and because he knows that, like, look, you can't have the same system running all the time if that system's not working. You got to throw in some variables that are going to shake things up to get you out of the funk. And so those guys have that intuition of knowing this is a time where we need to be serious, or this is a time where we need to switch some things up, maybe have a little fun, do something that's off cuff. And they provide that for their team and their players.
And I think you could feel that. You can feel it for sure. And you've been in so many teams in your career that you know when it's really tense and everyone's just scared and they're anxious or they're too relaxed. You know, and the coach will come in and they would feel it. If they're too relaxed, guess what? It's like, you guys are taking this too soft.
Right.
These guys are going to blow you out if you guys are acting like this. Right. Or where it's too tense, it's like, guys, relax. We've been practicing. We practice harder than anybody else. Let's just show them what you've been practicing about, and everyone just relaxes. And I think you eventually get so aware of what the state is that you just know what to play. I think that's like some of my best coaches were like that. They never just had one tone. For some reason, they had a tone for every different game, and that's how you get really, really good at what you do. So I want to talk about that, like some of the best teams you've played for, and then maybe some of the worst teams. You don't have to say the teams that you played for. What were some of the underlining characteristics that made that a special team for you?
It really does start with the leadership.
Okay.
I think if you have any group, they only go as far as the leadership.
Yes.
And a lot of the times that's obviously the coaches.
Yeah.
And then there's times where you have great, like you said, clubhouse players where they know, look, we got to band together. We need to create a certain environment, energy for ourselves. And those are usually the teams that do well. They have that leadership role that's guiding the energy, guiding the momentum. And if a coach has like a certain, like you said, emotion or energy or vibe that they're bringing, and it's not what needs to be felt by the team, the leaders of the players are going to be like, look, we know the coaches are feeling, thinking, doing this, and we know we need something else. I've seen it time and time again where it's, maybe the leadership of the coaches aren't doing and bringing what they need to bring. Or maybe it's just one. Maybe it's the head honcho, and some of the other coaches kind of know, but he's in charge, so he's kind of bringing that energy, and the players need to band together and be like, look, we need to bring this type of energy. We need to be loose. We need to be fun. Because as a coach and as a manager in different positions, there's a lot of stress involved. There's a lot of anxiety through them. And I kind of felt that a little bit sometimes throughout my career where the manager is so uptight. We as players start playing uptight.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't have the wherewithal to understand, like, look, I'm the one why we're so tight. And so as the group of players, you need them to have that insight. So like when it comes to the best teams that I've played for, you got to have a balance of one or the other.
Yeah.
And when you're really operating at full strength, it's
all
the
of them
coach.
are on one line.
It's the boat. Yeah. Because if the coach is one way, acting the way that the totality of the group needs to be, the players are going to feed off that and they're going to embody that right away.
Right.
And so when you get both those going together, then it's like, watch out. Yeah. And it's probably something you feel with your gyms. Like,
I feel that in my team. Yeah.
You bring a certain level of energy, and if they're not matching it, you're going to do what you can do to get the energy moving the right way. And maybe, some days you have bad days. You walk in and the energy of your team is moving in a certain way, and then it starts to pull you. And now before you know it, you're right back with where you need to be.
100%. You just summed up kind of my past 3 years running my team. I'll have moments where I'm hyped up, and then I'll have moments where my coaches know I'm stressed out, and they'll be like, hey dude, like, I know you're just tense. Let me take some of your work away from you. So I agree. I think some of the best teams they have leadership happening from both directions, from the players all the way to the top. And when they know the leader's in trouble, the other leaders from the bottom will understand that and recognize that. And like, dude, coach is just stressed, right? He's just stressed X, Y, and Z. Let's do this so we can support him.
Yep.
Right. But don't pick it up. But, I think that's cool. That's cool. You're able to even see that. And again, man, I'm excited to come back when you're coaching.
Yeah.
I want to see what stuff you use and you learn.
Yep.
Because you have a lot. You're already starting at you have a strong base already.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I've been blessed. I don't know what it was or why I was so lucky to have the team success throughout my career that I've had. So many championships, so many successful seasons, and like I said, it comes from a lot of great coaching.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to see it really from the ground up. I give my dad a lot of credit too, because he was a guy that he never played baseball. He was a individual sport type guy. He wrestled, he boxed. He had a whole different mentality when it came to team sports.
Yeah.
And not always the greatest, but he was able to as my first coach, you know, instill some very foundational things when it came to that. And then I was able to take that and see that, how that process worked with him. And then you start getting to guys who understand the game. Now they understand like working with teams. You just build from that. And like I said, I've seen some of the greatest coaches at each level. Yeah. And, you know, I'm going to start when it comes to me being in that position to coach, use their identities to kind of mesh with mine. Like if I have a day where I need to embody a certain coach that would handle a situation a certain way, I'm going to start tapping
into that. Yeah.
Exactly. And use that and, you know, filter it through my own way of going about it. But yeah, I've been so lucky to have those types of people that I think I'm going to be set up for a good situation.
I think what makes you a great coach is you're probably one of the best students. And you're at an entirely different level, but then like in terms of just like your professionalism, but then you'll ask me questions like you're brand new, which I think makes you like another underlining lesson. The best coaches were once the best students. And when you really look at it from the top, like Steve Kerr, dude, he's a crazy coach. But then if you just like go all the way back, he's played for Michael Jordan, he's played for Tim Duncan, Popovich, Phil Jackson. Dude, he was observing the entire time. He was a student the entire time, handling so many different personalities. I can't imagine. Michael Jordan, Tim Duncan, two different guys. So like you dude, you got to give yourself some credit. I think you're an amazing student. You know, there might be other athletes there that might not been. They're like, no, that coach sucked, because they weren't ready to learn.
Yeah. That's a testament to just curiosity. Like I'm just always curious. And like I said earlier, that might be one of the downfalls to my playing career was in a weird way was I liked getting away. I liked focusing on other things because of my curiosity. But like you said, when it comes to coaching and being a good student and evolving to that coach, it stems with just being curious, wanting to find out about things that are different perspectives.
Yeah.
So
I can't wait till you listen to the James episode, Curiosities.
I'm very excited.
One of our massive value points. Okay, let's talk about the bad ones.
Okay.
No, you don't have to put any names. I've been part of a lot of bad teams. I've created some bad teams myself. So what were some of those key characteristics that you've noticed? It's like, oh gosh, this is not good.
When they got over emotional.
Okay.
Coaches that are just very emotional, they ride waves and, you know, the highs are great. And then the lows, they're just as bad.
Right.
I feel like you kind of need and it's good to have, you know, emotions, energetic feedback, you know, when things are going well and firing the team up. When things are bad, hey, look, we need to focus.
Yeah.
Having that is important, but you need to have some sort of stoicism where, look, I need to know and be aware that I'm doing that. I can't just fly off cuff.
The handles,
you know, we know a lot of great coaches that we see them being way too emotional, throwing chairs onto courts and all sorts of crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not going to name any names, but you guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
Coaches like that too.
And I think, could be totally wrong.
Yeah.
But if I was to guess, a lot of those coaches that handle it that way, they're doing it with some intent.
Yeah.
They know when they hurl that chair across that they're going to look a little wild, and they're probably doing it because they're flared up a little bit, but they probably know that they're doing it with a little bit of intent. They probably know that they're doing that to either fire their guys up or send a message.
Yeah.
Over emotional. That's usually one thing that with coaches, you can tell it's going to be a struggle.
It's not they misuse the power.
Yeah. They're not aware of the power usually.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes I think throwing a chair can be very impactful, especially if the ref is just like no, red card or whatever. They're just like they're pulling some crappy calls, and I think that can a
good manager or coach knows when to have a well placed objection, where they know that, look, I'm going to go after this referee, I'm going to go after this umpire and get ejected,
I've seen that,
so that it fires my team. It does benefit. And you can look at them and be like, oh, they're out of control, they're emotional. And it's like, yeah, they're using it, but are they out of their emotion? Are they out of control? Or are they using it with intent and being purposeful? And I think there's two very different things. So with the emotion, that's, not to get confused, but I think that's a big one. And then another one is their ego, like letting their ego overshadow what they're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
I see it, all the time not all the time, but enough times with coaches where they get challenged by a player and then it's just red. Then it's just ego of, look, I'm going to insult you. I'm not going to make it.
It's very self-serving at that point.
Exactly.
When I hear that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think those two things are huge, and it's not necessary in my opinion, especially at a certain level. I think when you're dealing with younger kids, the high school, college level, there is a certain pushback as a coach for sure you need. If somebody's going to disrespect you, you for sure need to go in on them.
Yeah.
But there, like I said, there's an intent behind it. There's a way you can do that while achieving a goal versus you doing it just for you to feel better about yourself after that situation. And I've seen that a couple times where it's like, that's unfortunate. That coach could handle that situation better. Yeah. And those are usually like the two big things that you see as a player.
Teams, yeah. And what's crazy when you talk about what makes a good team and a bad team, you didn't talk about their hitting percentage. No. You didn't talk about their RBIs or how fast their 40-yard is or their hops, right? It's like, no, what makes a good teams are these two things. One, it's refreshing just to know that it's not the actual stats of the athletes, it's the whole. And I think the other stuff takes care of itself. Like you create a great environment as a coach, and these people that are supposed to fruit, they fruit. And dude, I'm super pumped for you to just like take this leadership, because I think you have I see it. I get it. Yeah. I get why they were like, hey, Taylor, I'd love for you to coach.
Yeah. And you hit it right on the head with, obviously you need your teams to produce. You need, to be a championship team, you need to come out and ball. Yeah. But what does that look like as a team? Because we've seen, Super Bowls, championships, World Series winners, that those teams did it in totally different ways. Yeah. You might have an offense that's just dominates and they just put up so many numbers that the rest really doesn't matter. You might have a defense where the offense isn't as strong and they hold it down. You put enough points on the board, the defense is going to hold it down for you. And so there's different ways of doing it. Yeah. Baseball, you might just have such good arms that maybe you don't hit very well. Maybe you don't even
seen those teams,
play. Usually you got to play good defense, but don't have the superstars on defense that you might see, but you have guys on the mound that are just, they're lights out. Yeah. Teams win in different ways. So it's not necessarily, it's one formula to get us there. But the one formula, if you want to call it that needs to happen is there's got to be some sort of inertia and energy within that clubhouse. You're not going to have a clubhouse of bad dudes winning championships. Yeah. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Dude, I think that's just, it's crazy. It's all environment. And that's it. Yeah. All right, final coach, because I want to sum this up, and we'll get you when you come back after the season, because I'd love to kind of break that apart and use some of the lessons you've learned and then actually apply it. I think that's an entirely different ballgame.
For sure.
Like we might have a conversation like, dude, I tried to apply it, it backfired on me. Right?
It's the whole Mike Tyson thing. You might have a plan, but someone punches you in the mouth, that might change.
Yeah. So so if you had one attribute that makes a great coach, one attribute that makes a great coach, what would that be?
This might sound kind of crazy, but love.
Wow.
By no means am I an overly compassionate or emotional person. Yeah. And when I say that, obviously I don't mean in a romantic sense. Yeah. But one thing that I've really learned, really been able to reflect on when it comes to looking at, some of the great leaders that I've had, they all had this love in them that they gave to their team and their staff. Yeah. And, it wasn't until I had Dusty Baker where he would literally say, we need to love each other.
Right.
And he would say that a lot after his team meetings. Did I start to look back and be like, oh no, he was saying the same thing. He might not have said, love each other, but he was saying the same thing to us.
Yeah.
He was saying the same thing to us. I look back at, and this has changed even my relationship of how I look at my dad, because he was never an emotional connection. Always felt like we were off when it came to each other. Never felt like I was getting like what I needed from him. And it wasn't until I started to look back and realized every time I would leave, the thing he would say to me would be something I needed to fix or do as an athlete.
It was never the good things.
It was never like, I love you. Like, but he would say, you need to stop dropping your shoulder. I'm saying bye to my family and I'm walking out the door, and the thing he says to me is, you need to stop dropping your back shoulder. And for the longest time, it would piss me off so much until I started looking back and realized, bro, he's just telling me he loved me.
Yeah.
And the coaches that they have that connection, like I talked about, when you're in it, they're in it with you, but just looking at different perspectives. Those are the ones that are going to flourish. And those are the guys that they have love for the people that they're working with. There's a connection. It goes deeper than just, I'm instructing you on what to do. I'm there with you. I'm there feeling what you're feeling, and your solution is going to be my solution. My solution is going to be your solution.
Yeah.
There's a bond that we got. And so, love. I think
Dude, you're going to be such a dangerous coach. And you're right. Like, I've had some coaches that I've hated for years. I had one scenario in basketball where I smashed my fingers and I had to shoot with my left hand. And the coach was like, he didn't even really say anything. I hated him for it for years. Mm-hmm. He was like, do you have a left hand? And I was like, yeah, I have a left hand. And that's all he said. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up making both the free throws, right? But then I resented him for making me play with that type of pain for so long. So I think the dilemma is, they're going to resent you for at least 2 to 3 or 4 or 5, or maybe for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. But this version of love doesn't sound like a hug. Mm-hmm. It's like, dude, drop your left shoulder. Mm-hmm. And then this guy's going to hate you for 2 years or 3 years, but that's what he needed at the time. Mm-hmm. That's where people don't see the coaching side. That's why I wanted to make this podcast. Mm-hmm. Like, the price of being a coach. You're going to say something to them that's going to completely change their life, and you're not going to get thanked for it for 5 years down the road, or 10 years down, or maybe even never.
Yeah.
Right. And then now you have to decide to use that power. You can just give them a hug, tell me they did a good job, or you can be hated.
That's the price of being a good coach right there. You could go a whole podcast just talking about that. Yeah. Like, the sacrifice that you're not always going to be liked.
In fact, a lot of them are not liked. Yeah.
The great ones usually have the stigma of not being liked. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, are you willing to make that sacrifice for the benefit of your player? And I mean, really, to have a sacrifice like that, it's got to be some sort of love involved, right?
It's massive. Yeah. If you watch the Last Dance with Michael Jordan, he was listening to all of his players, of what he was saying to him, and it broke his heart. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't know how much he loved his players. Mm-hmm. And that's why he pushed them so hard. Mm-hmm. That's from a player standpoint, but I think also coaches do that too. Mm-hmm. And I think parents do that too. Yeah. They do that a lot. My dad was like that. He never saw the good. He only saw the bad. Right. But he saw the bad because he said, I love you. Mm-hmm. But they didn't have a particular way to say it. Yep. He
wants what's best for you. He wants to see you continue to have success and grow. And I might not be able to say the things that we would like to hear. Yeah. But once we start realizing, look, they have a certain way about them. They grew up a certain way. Mm-hmm. They've had certain experiences that made them communicate that way, but they are communicating it. You just have to be able to receive it properly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But then if you did receive it and you knew it was love, sometimes that passion, you almost don't, because now you have this anger. You're like, I'm going to show them. Right? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Yeah. So it's like, it's just difficult.
Well, that could be just a mind shift of how you're thinking about it, because you're right. Yeah. I know so many guys that use that fire of like almost anger and hatred to drive them to do great things. But like, for example, like with your son and Lucas, I know you love him, and it's like you'll do anything for him and push through anything for him, right?
Right.
It's the same kind of concept. Is it driven by, anger or fear or anxiety, or is it driven by love and connection and passion? I think it's however you want to wire it in your mind. And honestly, if somebody is all about like, I need to be mad and need to be angry to get to where you need to get, hey, do what is successful for you. Whatever gets you in the right mindset to do that, boom, go ahead and take it on. Just know what ramifications might come from it. You might be seen as an angry person. You might
burn some relationships in the process.
You might have to, but look, if that's what's going to be most beneficial and that's the way to do it, then do it.
Yeah. I get that a lot too, because I'm very like peaceful, kind of like you are, and they're like, tap in your anger. I was like, I don't even know what that feels like, man.
Yeah.
Right? It never feels good, because I've seen my dad in that situation. I was like, I don't want to tap into that energy.
Yeah.
I know it can be very productive, but then there's other emotions that I think that are equally productive. So, dude, crazy. We tapped into identity, death, what makes a great coach. I'm really excited when you start coaching and coming back, because I'd love to kind of distill kind of some of the lessons and see if we use some of the practical things we talked about.
Yep.
But guys, if you guys like this episode, make sure to share, make sure to subscribe, tell Taylor to come back, because this guy's plenty. You can tell how cerebral he is, and that's why I wanted to bring him in here. And I'm pumped when we get him back. I'll see you guys later. Peace.
Awesome. That was great.